One word. Misspelled. Fandation. Not foundation. That half second of human hesitation stopped $870 million from disappearing. But by the time that banker noticed the typo, $81 million had already vanished, converted into casino chips in Manila, and walked out the door as legitimate winnings. This is not a heist that failed. This is a heist that almost perfectly succeeded, executed not by criminals with guns, but by a government, a state-sponsored hacking unit from one of the most isolated regimes on Earth. This is the story of the Lazarus Group, the Bangladesh bank hack, and the single typo that saved the global financial system from complete humiliation. Everything starts with an ordinary Tuesday morning. A low-level employee at Bangladesh Bank, the country's central bank based in Dhaka, opens their email. The inbox is full. It always is, but one message catches their eye near the top. It is a job application. The email is polite and professional. There is an attached CV. The sender seems eager, perhaps a little too eager, but the tone is perfectly normal. Nothing about it screams danger. So the employee does what any person does when they see an attachment from a stranger who claims to be looking for work. They click. Nothing happens. No explosion. No blue screen. No obvious sign that anything has changed. The document opens. The CV looks real. The employee moves on with their morning. But in the background of Bangladesh Bank's internal network, something has woken up. A piece of malware. Sophisticated, quiet, patient. Has just been planted inside one of the most important financial institutions in a country of 170 million people. And it has absolutely no intention of doing anything dramatic. Not yet. For the next 14 months, the malware does something far more dangerous than stealing data immediately. It watches. It records keystrokes. It maps the internal network. It learns which usernames belong to which employees, when those employees log in, how long their sessions last, which terminals connect to the Swift messaging system, and what a normal transaction looks like from the inside. 14 months of patience. 14 months of intelligence gathering. Because the people who planted this malware, later identified as the Lazarus Group, a hacking collective with direct ties to the North Korean government, were not looking for a quick smash and grab. They were planning the largest digital bank robbery ever attempted. To understand what happens next, you need to understand who is sitting on the other side of that malware. The Lazarus Group is not a loose collective of teenagers in dark rooms. It is, according to multiple intelligence agencies, including the FBI and cybersecurity firms like Kaspersky and Symantec, a hacking unit directly linked to North Korea's Reconnaissance General Bureau, the country's primary intelligence agency. North Korea is under some of the heaviest international sanctions ever imposed on a modern nation-state. Traditional banking is inaccessible. Foreign currency is nearly impossible to obtain through legitimate trade. And yet, the regime has an enormous appetite for cash. Not for its citizens, but for its nuclear weapons program, its ballistic missile development, and the maintenance of a ruling elite that lives in extraordinary comfort while the rest of the country starves. So Pyongyang made a calculation. If you cannot earn foreign currency through trade, you steal it through code. The Lazarus Group had already left fingerprints across the internet. In 2014, they were behind the catastrophic hack of Sony Pictures, which destroyed internal servers, leaked unreleased films and private executive emails, and caused hundreds of millions of dollars in damage. All because Sony was producing a comedy film that mocked Kim Jong-un. In 2017, they would deploy the WannaCry ransomware attack that crippled the UK's National Health Service, infected 200,000 computers across 150 countries, and caused an estimated $4 billion in global damages. But in early 2016, none of that had happened yet. The Lazarus Group was still an emerging shadow, a rumor in cybersecurity circles, and they had chosen Bangladesh Bank as their next target for a very specific reason. Bangladesh Bank held approximately $30 billion in foreign currency reserves. Those reserves were kept, as most central banks keep their reserves, at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. To move that money, Bangladesh Bank used SWIFT, the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication, a global messaging network that banks use to send payment instructions to one another. Every day, trillions of dollars move across SWIFT. The system runs on trust, on authentication codes, on the assumption that if a message arrives with the correct credentials, it must be legitimate. Bangladesh Bank's SWIFT terminal was not isolated. It was connected to the bank's general office network, the same network that a low-level employee had used to open a job application email one ordinary Tuesday in January 2015. The door was wide open. The Lazarus Group simply waited for the right moment to walk through it. The timing of what happens next is not accidental. It is surgical. Thursday evening, February 4th, 2016. Bangladesh observes a weekend starting Friday, so as the business day ends in Dhaka, the central bank goes dark. Lights off. Security guards making their rounds. Nobody inside the building is monitoring the SWIFT terminal. In New York, Friday is a normal business day. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York is open. And because Bangladesh is on the other side of the world, there's no one in Dhaka awake to answer a phone call. Meanwhile, the destination accounts in the Philippines, a small branch of RCBC Bank on Jupiter Street in Manila, are about to receive enormous deposits. And Monday in the Philippines is a national holiday due to Chinese New Year. Even if someone in Manila noticed something strange over the weekend, the banking system would be closed before anyone could act. 3 countries, 3 different calendars, 3 different holiday schedules, and the Lazarus Group had studied all of them. At some point during that Thursday night in Dhaka, attackers connect remotely to Bangladesh Bank's SWIFT terminal. They move through the network using credentials they have been studying for over a year. To the system, they look exactly like Bangladesh Bank's own employees. Same usernames, same behavioral patterns, same login sequences. The system has no reason to question them. They begin issuing transfer instructions. Not one enormous transaction that would immediately trigger alarms, but 35 separate requests, each for tens of millions of dollars, each routed carefully to avoid obvious red flags. The total, $951 million. The destinations, 4 ghost accounts at RCBC's Jupiter Street branch in Manila, and 1 account tied to a charity called the Shalika Foundation in Sri Lanka. As these instructions are sent through SWIFT to the New York Fed, one final piece of the operation activates. The malware that has been sitting silently inside Bangladesh Bank's network for 14 months executes a secondary function. It attacks the printer connected to the SWIFT terminal. The physical printer that automatically generates a paper record of every overnight transaction. The simple mechanical backup system that a human being reviews every morning. The printer jams. An error appears on the screen. No paper comes out. The only physical witness to the heist is silenced before anyone in Dhaka wakes up. At the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, SWIFT messages from Bangladesh Bank begin arriving in volume. The amounts are significant. The recipients are unusual. The volume of instructions coming from a single institution in a single night is, by any reasonable measure, aggressive. Several Fed employees noticed an internal review begins. But the banking system does not move at the speed of suspicion. It moves at the speed of procedure. Forms are opened. Approval chains are consulted. Control mechanisms operate in sequence one by one. This is not incompetence. It is how an institution built to be stable and careful is designed to function. And while those procedures unfold, 5 transactions are approved. 4 go to RCBC's Jupiter Street branch in Manila. A combined $81 million lands in 4 accounts that were opened months earlier using falsified identity documents. Accounts that previously held balances of less than $500 each. 1 goes to the Shalika Foundation in Sri Lanka. $20 million, flagged at Deutsche Bank, an intermediary, because a clerk notices something wrong. The name on the transfer instruction reads Shalika Fandation. Not Foundation. Fandation. The clerk checks the records. Shalika Foundation exists. Shalika Foundation does not. The registration numbers do not match. The bank has no legitimate reason to send $20 million to a misspelled charity that nobody can verify. The transaction is frozen. Bangladesh Bank is contacted. Officials in Dhaka say, with complete honesty, that they have never issued any such instruction. That one phone call detonates everything. The New York Fed pulls the emergency brake. All remaining transfer instructions, approximately $850 million worth, are blocked before they can leave the system. The heist collapses. But $81 million is already in Manila. And what happens to it next is a masterclass in money laundering. Within days of the transfers landing in those 4 RCBC ghost accounts, the money begins to move with breathtaking speed. It is consolidated into a single account, then transferred to a foreign exchange broker, then converted into Philippine pesos. Hundreds of millions of pesos arriving in duffel bags at the doors of Manila's largest casinos. Inside those casinos, the pesos become chips. The chips become bets. The bets become winnings. And winnings, crucially, at the time, were entirely outside the Philippines' anti-money laundering laws. Casino receipts did not require any documentation about the origin of funds. The money was clean the moment it crossed the casino floor. Approximately $15 million was eventually recovered when a casino operator agreed to return it, claiming he had no knowledge of the theft. A branch manager at RCBC's Jupiter Street branch was later convicted of money laundering and sentenced to between 32 and 56 years in prison. She maintained, and still maintains, that she was a pawn, that the real architects of the laundering operation were far beyond her reach. She is probably right. The Bangladesh bank governor resigned under pressure weeks after the heist became public. SWIFT overhauled its global security protocols, requiring member banks to implement far stricter authentication and monitoring standards. Banks worldwide conducted emergency reviews of their own SWIFT infrastructure. The attribution to North Korea and the Lazarus Group did not come immediately. It came slowly, through months of forensic analysis by cybersecurity researchers at BAE Systems and other firms who found fragments of code inside the Bangladesh bank malware that matched tools previously used in the Sony Pictures attack. Same syntax, same encryption methods, same digital fingerprints. The Lazarus Group had been careful, but not careful enough. They had reused their tools, and those tools had a history. Of the $81 million stolen, approximately $15 million was recovered. The remaining $66 million, and possibly significantly more, has never been found. The accounts are empty. The people who moved the money have dispersed. And somewhere, in a country under international sanctions, a government that cannot legally earn foreign currency managed to pocket tens of millions of dollars without firing a single weapon. Here is what this story actually teaches us, beyond the technical details and the geopolitical intrigue. The most sophisticated cyber attack ever attempted against a global financial institution began with a single employee clicking on an email attachment. One click. That is how 14 months of reconnaissance started. That is how a nuclear-armed regime accessed the global banking system. That is how $81 million disappeared. And what stopped $870 million more from disappearing? Not a firewall upgrade, not a government cybersecurity task force, not an AI threat detection system. One bank clerk, reading carefully, noticing that one word looked wrong. Fandation. The systems that move money around the world are built on extraordinary complexity. Trillions of dollars cross borders every day through networks that most people never think about. Authenticated by codes that most people cannot read. Monitored by institutions that most people never see. And all of it, every dollar, every peso, every one, runs on the assumption that the message telling the system to move the money is coming from the person it says it's coming from. The Lazarus Group proved that assumption wrong. And they are still out there. More experienced now. More resourceful. More careful about spelling. The question is not whether they will try again. They already have. Multiple times. In multiple countries. Against multiple banks. The question is, next time, will someone be reading carefully enough to notice